Welcome and thank you for choosing True Grit, the show about what it really takes to rise, rebuild, and stay the course when life hits hard. I'm Cleesh Morrow, a coach, storyteller, and believer in the kind of strength you can't fake. Around here, we talk about real people, real stories, and the lessons that shape us, from resilience and mindset to health and healing, because grit isn't about grinding harder, it's about who you become when you don't quit. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be doing today's podcast with a good friend, Cara Schulz. And I have a quick bio to go through because she is a freaking rock star and everything's worth noting. She is council member serving on the Burnsville City Council in Minnesota since 2016. She is a U.S. Air Force veteran, an author, an herbalist, functional nutrition coach, owner of the Flower Pot for Holistic Wellness, and fellow kicker of cancer's ass. I am so looking forward to having this conversation. Welcome to the show, Cara.
I appreciate you having me on, and I am likewise a huge fan of yours.
It's surreal. We flipped the script this time because last time I was on a podcast with you, you were interviewing me.
Yeah.
Some number of years ago.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and that was very exciting because that was about your win and one heck of a well-run campaign, like truly excellent.
Well, and my whole team, we have you to credit for that. We got so much out of the trainings that you put on and learned so much from everything that you had gone through. And you're also a very creative campaigner yourself. So it was really cool to run through some different ideas with you and to learn from you. And again, like we credit our success a lot to what you were able to provide for us. So thank you again for that.
You bet.
Okay, well, so speaking of campaigns, though, I think that we need to go back to yours and how much of a harrowing experience that must have been. I've heard a little bit about it from here and there, and I mean, you were a cancer patient going through it, and you were still out there knocking doors. I mean, it's incredible. So I'd love to hear more about that.
It was also a little stupid, but there you go. Yeah, so I had planned to run in the 2016 election. I had run for a council seat in 2014 up against an incumbent, and I did not win, but I came really close, very close. And so I got everything prepped for a 2016 run and had everything that I needed to do, the same, different, like all that kind of stuff, right? And it got to be late fall, early winter of 2015. And I knew I wasn't well, and I was concerned it was something really serious. And I had been going to the doctor, but of course they brush you off and they just tell you that everything you're experiencing is stress, and it's not. Like, something is seriously wrong. And I remember having a discussion with the doctor, and I was telling him everything that was wrong, and he said, "Oh, okay, well, I think you have colitis then. So I'll be back in a minute, and I'm going to write you a prescription, and we'll just start from there." And I'm like, so the second he left the office, I'm looking up because I'm remembering, okay, to be diagnosed with that, like you have to have certain tests, and one of them is, some type of scope, right? Like some type of colonoscopy. But I thought maybe I remembered that wrong. Maybe I'm out of date. So when I looked, nope, that is still what you absolutely have to have. So when he came in, I said, okay, well, you're guessing. Like, you're guessing. You don't know.
Wow.
And he said, well, I've been doing this a long time. I think I know. And I said, okay, well, what if it's cancer? And he said, you do not have cancer. You're too young. And I said, okay, so are you refusing to order a colonoscopy for me? Like, how many people come in your office and ask for one? Really? Like, that's what people do? And he said, you don't need one. And I said, okay, I would like you to mark it down in my medical file that I have asked for one, that I have these symptoms, that you're refusing one, and you are saying point blank that this could not be cancer. So that way, if it turns out that I do have cancer, I can come back and sue you for malpractice.
Oh.
And then I just didn't say anything after that and let him think about that for a moment. And with very ill grace, then he ordered one for me. And yes, it turned out I had late stage colon cancer. And all of these years of him putting me off had not done me any favors on that. Like it could have been caught early and been easy, but it was not caught early and it was not easy.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
I had to decide, like, what am I going to do? Because when I came out of my colonoscopy, like the doctor that came in that read it, he point blank told my husband, I, of course, need to get into treatment, but I would put your affairs in order. Like that was the conversation I had with him. So I had to think, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so I did decide to go forward with my run because I thought, well, I have a very low chance of living 2 years and it's a 4-year term, but that doesn't mean no chance. And, well, you can't just stop living. Right. And so when I announced my run, I also announced my diagnosis because I needed to be very clear with residents so that when they were voting, they were understanding that there was a real possibility that I would not serve my term. Sounds insane now, but there you go. I did campaign and it was an issue in the campaign. And when I went door knocking, because I ran a full out campaign, when I went out door knocking, I did so with a chemotherapy pump hooked onto me, which I had to wear for 48 hours. And there were times I didn't think I could walk another step. Um, I threw up in people's bushes. I fainted from the heat because the other thing was like I could not stand heat. A lot of times I had to campaign. Had an umbrella because just it was the sun and the heat together. Just like I would drop on the ground, but I kept at it every day. Some of the effects of the chemotherapy that I was on, it destroys the fine vascular system in your hands and your feet. So screws up your nerves. So started to not be able to feel my feet, which made me very clumsy. But it also destroys those really fine vascular endings. And so your hands get dry and crack, and your feet do as well. And by standing on your feet, the skin would start to split open and bleed. So I just kept bags of socks in my car. And when my socks got squishy, then I would put a fresh pair of socks on and go back out. So looking back on that, I kind of think, wow, that was maybe a little extreme, maybe. But like I said, you can't stop living. You can't stop living. And that was something that I wanted to do for my community. I still wanted to be of service to my community. And there were specific challenges that our city was facing that I wanted to help with. And I wanted to really get that out there and maybe change the direction on some things. So, yeah, I know, craziness. And I got
Yeah,
elected.
I mean, it is just to say it's a testament to your resiliency is such an understatement. But it's also just this. If I can reflect back to the reason why I've got True Grit, that being the name of the podcast, and then with what I'm all doing, there is that whole underlying theme of just not being a victim of your circumstance and carrying forward with something that almost feels like a calling, like something that's so much bigger than yourself. And if you sit back and be in this victim mentality, you're right, like you're just going to watch life go by, and we don't know how long that we have. And I've even said it doesn't even have
Yeah.
to be a death sentence. It could just be that your entire life just gets changed. So for you, while you didn't know what was going to happen for sure, obviously it turned out well. Thank God it did.
Yes.
That you
I'm
also
still on the right
knew.
side of the dirt.
Yeah, right, right, and that you still moved forward, but it also showed like anything can change. It doesn't even have to be an awful
Oh, yeah.
prognosis. It can just be something where you're having to go through these treatments and they completely upset your life. I know for myself when I was 14, well, yes, I had cancer and I got to kick cancer's ass. We caught it early-ish enough, and it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, so it was really predictable. I had an excellent prognosis from day one. There were still some like scary things thrown in there, but it was still like a thing that you had to go through. It completely disrupts your life. And you are like going through these things that most people don't have to go through with the chemotherapy treatments, with radiation, just things that completely disrupt your life. And now we throw in, though, that you had still went forward with pursuing something that you felt very passionate about, and that I have found that motivation is not necessarily from something outside yourself, but like that solid motivation, the motivation that will make you work through basically passing out and throwing up in people's bushes is going to be this thing that really that means so much more to you. And the fact that you have that passion for your community, I'm speechless, quite honestly. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I did need to be very honest with my residents all along the way. I had to share some really personal medical things periodically, but you also have to be very open and transparent. So, yeah. And talking about how you still have to live and that kind of stuff. Are you really supposed to have a martini when you're on chemo? No. No, you are not. Are you supposed to have raw oysters? Absolutely not, because your immune system is in the utter toilet. But I also knew for me, those were some of the things that made life living. So, there is being alive and there is living your life. And so did I schedule a couple rooftop happy hours to have a martini and raw oysters? Absolutely I did. Did that drive my family insane because they could not understand why I would do that, why I was running for office, like why I was doing these things. But I knew why. Like I knew that some of the biggest components of, really living your life and also staying alive, like I credit
Hmm.
those things with part of why I'm still alive
Yeah.
is that feeling of purpose, but also the feeling of joy and connection to other human beings. Those are absolutely as important as any other part of my treatment. 100%.
Absolutely. I agree. It keeps you anchored into what is still important, and that you still need to have those moments of remembering why you're fighting so hard for this. Things that bring you joy in your life, that is again what will help you out. And I think right before I had my diagnosis, I had just watched Patch Adams, and I was carrying that forward with, so much about the human spirit has such a direct impact on your outcome. And so yeah, I absolutely get why you would have still, like, not given up on those things, because otherwise, why are you still carrying on when you're still so stuck in that, I mean, it's miserable. So, reaching for
Yeah.
those moments of
Oh, yeah.
joy. And the thing that you brought up, and I, can relate to it, and I love to hear more of your thoughts on it, but just when you're reaching for something that's so big, we can take the fact
Mhm.
of already going through cancer, fighting cancer, something that not everybody can relate to. Put that with the fact that not
Yeah.
like I don't even know what the percentage is of people who will run for office, let alone win office, win their campaigns. But that's something that most normal people don't go for. And so a lot of people won't understand that drive just to begin with, let alone, again, stacking all these things on top of it. And I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking out loud. But I feel like it's come up a lot where I tell people what I'm up to, and they are just like, "But why?" And that's why I relate to you so much, because we have very parallel stories, or stories that run parallel to one another. And I get this a lot, so I know you get it a ton too. And especially, I have to say, hats off to you for staying in the political field. I had to bow out because that was just not. I lost my why. And have gone full in now with what I'm doing as a coach, but you're doing both simultaneously, and I freaking love that.
Yeah. It is difficult to win a race. If it's a toss-up race and there's no incumbent, the odds are a little better. But if you are not someone who is in the political elite, whatever that is at whatever level, because even in a small town, there is a political elite
Mhm.
who could barely do anything and be elected. Like that's just how it is. And then there's everyone else, and you have to work your butt off and have everything go almost perfectly just for the off chance that you can win your election. There's things you can do to increase that, of course, but it is a difficult, difficult hill to climb. It is a lonely hill to climb because even if you have a campaign team, the candidate is very alone out there. It is a very lonely thing to run for office, which seems crazy when you may have a campaign team and you may be going to all these events and you may be door knocking and you're interacting with a ton of people. But it is the difficulty and the stress of running that isolate you because almost no one else understands what that is like. And the closest I can come to explaining what it's like is instead of being in a dating app, standing out in the town square and naked and yelling, "Who wants to date me?" and having people to your face swipe left or right very publicly, like
Mm,
for days and days on end and months. Like that is what running for office is like, all while people are discussing every part of your body, right? Like
yeah.
that's what running for office feels like. And I think that's probably the closest approximation that I can come to for people who haven't run for office to even contemplate what that feeling is. And so that's the sense of isolation that you start to feel. And you do have to have a really strong why. Like, why are you doing this? Why do you want to serve? Many people who run for office want to do so because, frankly, they're monsters and they enjoy power and they would like to have power other human beings, right? That's really what they want. And so when your why is something more, for the community and about interdependence that we all have, not independence, not dependency, but that interdependence that we have in communities, that is that adds another level of difficulty to it. And that adds another level of really emotional involvement. So you have to have that really strong why. And so, yeah, I'm still doing politics. I was reelected for a third time. So for all those haters that wish I was on the other side of the dirt, wrong. Uh, it's still doing it. I am still, although not through LP National, like I'm still going to different states and training candidates that are not R or D candidates on how to run for office and do so successfully. So I'm still doing that. And yeah, I'm also I own the Flower Pot Holistic Wellness, and I'm not focused on longevity. I'm not focused on fitness. What I'm focused on is really two areas: managing chronic conditions. And the other one is increasing your health span. Because while there's things we can do to not shorten our life, there's not a ton we can do right now to really lengthen our life, but we can lengthen the amount of time within our life that all of our parts are working and functioning and we're living really good lives instead of having 10 years of serious chronic illness and maybe being housebound and that type of thing, or in a care facility for like the last 20 years of your life or 10 years of your life. And so those are the two areas that I'm really focused on for health and wellness, whether that's products or services. I'm just trying to get it out there that you don't have to accept that the last decades of your life are going to suck.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to what you were saying before, because this has been a constant thing that I hear from other people. It's things that I've experienced myself, but more so like people are becoming more and more active in taking charge of their health, and I applaud them for it,
Mhm.
and having other
Right.
alternatives such as what you're offering here. But so many of us have to advocate, and I mean, everybody take note of what Cara did when she told the doctor, basically, sign this, so in case you're wrong and you're denying me possible treatment, I can come back to you for a lawsuit and malpractice, and really put them on the spot and, hit them where it really matters. And that's just, unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And but again, we can play victim or we can take charge, and you're going to have to take charge so you don't become a victim of it.
You do have
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have to take charge. And there were several points during my treatment too where there was a dividing line where I could have gone along. And if I had, you and I would not be having this conversation, or I could advocate for my own health, wellness, and still being alive. Um, there was there was a point where I was in the hospital. I had an obstruction. We knew we had an obstruction. The only thing that was going to help was going to be surgery. We expected the surgery to happen, but when 3 days had gone by and I realized I didn't care about watching what was on TV, I didn't care what temperature the room was anymore. I realized I think I'm dying. Like, I think I'm starting to disconnect from my life and die. And my husband kind of realized that too. And we had to stop the doctor when he was making his rounds. The surgeon came around and we said, "When's the surgery?" And he's like, "Oh, well, we're just, we're waiting to see." And I looked at the surgeon and I said, "But I'm dying." And he just stopped then and sat down. And my husband had the conversation with him too. And we said, "What's really going on?" And he said, "Yeah, you are dying. Your surgery is too risky. The second we put you under, you're going to die on the table."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, I'd rather die that way." Like, don't I get a vote? And I'm like, I picked you as a surgeon because you're gutsy. That's why we picked you. So if I can man up, you got to man up. Let's do this. And so the next morning they rolled me into surgery and I survived it. Now that surgeon was shit hot. He was amazing. He was. We did have to sign some extra waivers saying that we absolutely understood everything. But 2 more days and I would have been dead. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have lived any longer.
And you could
So,
already feel it coming on.
you always have to be vigilant. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to be vigilant and you have to advocate for yourself. You cannot just go along. You have to constantly ask questions. You have to, and I know they say, "Oh, don't do Dr. Google." And there's some merit to that, right? There's really complex and misleading information out there, but you have to ask the really hard questions and the really direct questions and not stop until you get a really direct answer.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to asking you then, when did you decide that you wanted to get into herbalism? I know you were already on in the political, in the political realm, but then you kind of switched gears. I mean, you still stayed with that, but you switched gears and decided to open up
Yeah.
your own business and get into herbalism. And I love going back to basics and just the power of plants. And I mean, that's where we get our modern day medicines anyway. But yeah, like, where did that fascination for you begin?
So, like 30 some years ago, I I started to dabble in like aromatherapy and making my own perfume.
Mhm.
And that shortly led to taking correspondence classes because that was really free online anything really. And so it was 3 years of correspondence classes for herbalist classes. And then I had to once a month study still with an herbalist. And if I chatted with anyone, run everything by them. And that was for another year. But mostly I did it just for myself, my family, some friends, like that kind of thing. And on and off, took more classes through the years, always maintained an interest in it, but did not do it as a vocation, right?
Mhm.
And expanded into like, because the original one I learned was very like UK and Eastern European based. So learning different systems, except I don't do the Far East systems because that's a completely different, utterly different framework of herbalism than Western herbalism, like very, very different. And people who are specialists in that, amazing, incredible. They have a hard time crossing over into Western as well. So it kind of
Okay.
uh, but I maintained that all through the decades, and then when I underwent cancer treatments, that really, like, pushed it to the front because I realized all these things that I just knew that in my in-person and online cancer support groups, they had no idea, and it was even really basic things like, how do you deal with nausea? And I'll tell you, like, people will throw marijuana at you. Like, they will throw marijuana at you, and I'm one of those rare people that, like, it makes me throw up, so, like, that's not an option for me. Like, ginger is good for nausea. Cayenne pepper is good for nausea. Smelling a banana peel is good for nausea. For very acute nausea that hits like that, ripping open one of those alcohol wipes and smelling that will knock it out. Taking a quarter shot of vodka will help with nausea. Like there's a long list of
Wow.
things you can do to help with nausea depending on like what's happening, right? And that's just one tiny example, but like those were all things that I knew that no one else that I was interacting with knew, not the medical people I was interacting with, not other cancer patients. And so I was realizing all of these ways, right? Nutrition has such a huge, huge impact on survival rates when you are undergoing cancer treatments. But you don't get any conversations about that. Like the only conversations you get is eat anything you can. Anything that you can put in your mouth and not throw it up, like that's what you eat. Which, number one, get the nausea under control. You shouldn't be that should not be a thing. That doesn't have to be a thing. And number two, no, because when you're eating those types of things, that actually causes a nausea feedback loop, which puts
Mhm.
you in worse condition. So that's when I really got more involved in that and realizing this is something that people need. And so yeah, not too many years after recovery, then I decided I think I am at a position now where I could do this. I could do this full time. Like I am strong enough, healthy enough, very focused. Like I can do this full time.
Yeah, and that's amazing then to be able to compartmentalize, dare I say, between the two worlds that you dabble in.
Yes, because politics is a stress level like people can't believe. And what it does is it bathes the entire inside of your body, mind, soul, everything in poison. Like you're just marinating in it. And then looking at the wellness, you're doing all of these things to live your best, healthiest life, right? So they are
Mhm.
very polar opposite.
Yeah. And I think that that was my thing of I realize now looking back at the time and what threw me into politics as well. My husband being military,
Mhm.
we're living in an area that we didn't really choose to live in. It was great for his career, but for me personally,
Yeah.
I was isolated and all that. So I had to reinvent myself because I had lost my identity. Like that was something that I was really big that I'm coming to realize right now. So I lost my identity, but I think that there was like actually, I know that there was this underlying almost resentment and anger, which really helped me out actually with with politics. And, it fueled the fire, but it wasn't necessarily like a healthy space for me to be in. I think that if maybe we lived in a different
Yeah.
area where we really loved and wanted to stay there indefinitely, and I thought we did. I thought we really did. But some events happened, and I realized like this isn't really my people. I want to be closer to family. So that all that stuff aside, it's like you're saying though, like you're just in this constant state of fight or flight, and you have to stay and fight. You're having to stand your ground. You're having to
Mhm.
stand in your convictions. And I respect you as well with being a statesman. I learned that while I was sat in office. There is a difference between being a politician and being a statesman. A politician wants to make everybody happy and is always worried about the next election cycle, whereas a statesman will stand in their convictions no matter if it's popular or not, because it's the right thing to do. And so with that, like I think that that does help with like self-assuredness, but that it still doesn't mean that you aren't under a constant level of stress and having to navigate that. And yeah, so being able to balance both, or maybe not even balance, but find that harmony between the two. Again, I applaud you for doing that, and then going back to what you're saying with just that basic care being unknown for with doctors. I wanted to circle back around to that because I do find that they don't necessarily get all the training when it comes to nutrition. It's very short lived, maybe a semester or so, and then they're very individualized in their practices, and so they aren't necessarily looking at this holistic approach. And a lot of knowledge is getting lost because of that. And it takes people like you to go back and dig into this and learn it and bring it back to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Nutrition is a huge part of it. I mean, that's what repairs your body. It's what propels your body. It's what allows your mind to be clearer. I mean, there's just so many aspects to it. The nutrition is huge. Then you can layer in herbal treatments or herbal remedies. And, I'm not someone that excludes Western medicine by any means. Like, I'm an all the tools kind of person.
Hmm.
You want to move your body, you want to feed it well, you want to have good relationships. There's so many components to well-being, and there's so many small things, just tiny things that people could do, and if they just did them consistently, that would have the hugest impact in their life. And if you're hearing a squeaky toy, that is my kitten.
Oh, it's a squeaky toy. That's
She's having a very good time with her mousy toy. So she's having her playtime right now, living her best life. She is my deputy chief of staff. I
that's
have
right.
a chief of staff who is my older cat. And so now we have a deputy chief of staff training in, and boy, is that an adventure. So, but yeah, when I do talk to people, and some people ask me like, what would be a couple changes that I could make in my life that you think would have the biggest impact on my well-being? First one is really easy. Drink a glass of water when you first wake up. Like,
Hmm.
when you wake up, just drink a glass of water. Like, that's not a big ask, right? But when you
Yep.
wake up, you're waking up dehydrated and you're trying to gear up and get everything going, right? Just have a glass of water. Walk for 15 minutes after you eat a meal, even 10. Like, I'll take 10, 10 minutes. Just, I don't mean fast walking, just walk for 10 to 15 minutes after you eat something. Get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. The only time your body can repair itself is during one specific sleep cycle. So if you are not sleeping enough and you are not hitting that sleep cycle, you are not doing cellular repair. Like, you can't do it. And then the last thing would be have good interactions with other people. Like,
Mm.
have lunch with a friend. Anything that is like a good, solid social interaction, and try to do those regularly. And if you're someone who's like, I don't have many friends, I have trouble making friends. I understand that, but just like any other part of your wellness, then you know that that's an area you need to work on and do something. Like, I once a month I hit a paint and sip. I cannot paint to save my life. But I'm getting to know the ladies that regularly go to this thing, and we just laugh, and they big time laugh at my painting, but it's just a purely 2 hour social time. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. So if I could give you 4 things to do.
Yeah. Well, and you're also really good at sipping though, too. I've had a few cocktail hours with you in the past, so I know that you at least have the sipping down right. I know you're building upon a new skill with the painting.
I Yes, yes. I'm learning to multitask.
Well, and I'm glad that you bring those up because those are definitely the big rock sets everybody tends to just push off to the side because they want to chase the next
Mhm.
easiest thing. Like, yes, I have a red light therapy
Right.
panel, but I also know that it never does me any good if I'm not actually taking care of myself. It doesn't move the needle for you. It's like it's the cherry on top. There's no cherry on top without the cake. Like, you got to have the cake, and the cake is all these big rocks, and then you can add that stuff on that just makes it better. But you can't go and try to do all these little hacks and stuff thinking that that's what's going to change your life. It's not. It's going to be getting enough rest, taking care of your nutrition, the hydration, like the silliest thing. You see the memes all the time of like, yeah, I run on coffee. That counts, right? These dumb things that we all laugh about, but it's actually really stupid.
Mhm.
Because it's so easy to tackle.
It is. And remember when you were little and you would open the refrigerator door and you'd be staring in it, and your mom would say, "Shut the refrigerator door. You're not hungry. You're just thirsty." She was
Mhm.
right. Mom was right.
So along the vein of what you've been able to do with helping people out with herbs, just recently, like you talk about some of your client success stories, and I thought it was really fascinating the the success you were having with helping people navigate their blood sugar. And I love this because I truly believe that there's some different things that stack upon one another, nutrition being one of them, and then like your gut health as well. But like your metabolic health,
Mhm.
which has this cascading effect. And I want to say People can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it's really starting with just that simple blood sugar issues that so many of us end up having because we were high carb diet and we don't move as much. Yes, there's a lot of things that go into it, but these are things that are so within our control if we start tackling that. And I really want to hear the story was around that particular client and what you've been doing with managing blood sugar.
Yeah. That's actually a fairly common thing that I'm seeing with clients is a component of it is coming down to managing blood sugar spikes through the day. And I'm not saying that they're diabetic. Like I'm not talking about
Right.
diabetes that they're treating with insulin, right? So let's separate that. That is a different ball game. What we're talking about is like a person who's within normal ranges, right? Like a wide normal range, but within a normal range. And it can manifest in different ways. When you're like hit that afternoon slump, when you're having trouble maintaining your weight, when you're having those times where you're just like, you're so hungry and you're cramming everything in your mouth, because you're just like, oh my God, I gotta eat something. There are a lot of ways that it manifests. Difficulty sleeping comes back to managing blood sugar spikes as well. It just impacts in so many ways. And so I will have clients presenting with different challenges, and we really do delve into many aspects of their life. But if we're focusing just on this one area, which is managing your blood sugar, there's a lot of things you can do that again are really tiny. One of them is we play a game of do I like it as much? So we'll go through their diet and, they list everything they eat. And I'm like, just tell me everything you eat. Like, I'm not shaming you about anything. And I'm not going to tell you to cut stuff out. Like, that's not what we're going to do, but we're going to play a game. And so they list everything they eat. And I'm like, okay, we're going to pick a couple things out and we're going to find out, do you like this? Do you enjoy eating or drinking this as much as the thing that you presently do? Because a person will not change their habits if they feel like their life is less enjoyable, right?
Hmm. Correct.
And it can be something as simple as I really like toast with peanut butter on it. Okay, peanut butter is great. It's got a lot of protein in it, sugar in it though, right?
Hmm.
Okay, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Do you like 2 teaspoons of peanut butter on your toast as much as 2 tablespoons of peanut butter? And most of the time, the answer is yes, actually. I'm just used to digging that knife in there as big as I can and, doing that. So, like, when they get down to a point where the answer is no, we're not going to do that, or we're not going to cut back on that, or, we're not going to make that change. But they find out that there's a lot of really small things like that they like something absolutely as much. And so the change is not a problem. It's not really a change for them, but it makes a big impact on those sugar spike levels, evens them out. The other thing is, when I said walk after you eat, even if it's just 10 minutes, that does amazing things for keeping your blood sugar more even. Just walking starts the process of being able to manage that blood sugar load and evening it out. You can do things like instead of just drinking water through the day, you can drink a mixture of it's water and ginger and hibiscus. Like really,
Uh,
which
yeah,
is
delicious
tasty.
too.
Tastes even better than water, but does a really good job of taking the top parts of the spike of a blood sugar, right? And just flattening those. So there's a lot of different ways that you can attack this. And then you're finding, yes, I'm feeling better. My metabolic health is better. I am sleeping better. My concentration is better. I have more energy. And these are really, really small changes that a person can make that can have a oversized impact.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. It's stacking different habits or being able to figure out how we can modify different ones that if we try to attack it as coaches and try to make people change everything all at once, that's when everything falls apart. And then same thing for people who are DIYing their own health. If they just know that don't try to throw everything in there. You're going to get overwhelmed. And when you don't see this massive change in 3 weeks time, you get so, you start getting in your own way. So just these little changes, and you'll start to feel it immediately. You're going to start to see those changes and celebrate those little
Yeah.
wins, and then you just keep growing, building upon it. So such fantastic advice.
Yes. Yes. And I had a client and she was pre-diabetic and she was headed for insulin. Well, she's been able to reverse that. So
Hmm.
that was a big deal for her. And she doesn't feel like she made all of many changes. She doesn't feel like she's missing out on anything. And she does feel like this is something she can do for the rest of her life. Not a problem. She doesn't feel like it's a big deal. And she's kind of the unhappy part is that she didn't know this years ago.
Right. It's a shame that this isn't stuff that we were taught in school. We were taught a really inverted food pyramid food pyramid, and that has not served us well. Just these simple little things, but I think that diet culture has very much permeated how we see what nutrition is supposed to be like, and it's just completely bastardized what we it really
Mhm.
takes and overcomplicated everything. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. And just these little tweaks can make such a big difference. And yes, the walking. I even tell people like go do 35 squats. Right out body weight squats. Yeah, 30, whatever. It's that
Just anything.
movement right afterwards. Yeah, exactly. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And wow. Well, okay, I'll start wrapping this up, but I want to make, is there anything that you want to plug since we're going into the holiday season?
Yeah. So, of course, I always encourage people, buy local, buy small when you're looking at gifts, but also take a look at gifts that can give someone the gift of a longer health span. Look at things that you can incorporate into this time of year, whether it's activities you're doing, gifts you're giving, that type of thing. Really look at what can help keep the people that you love active and enjoying their life for longer. And let's make that part of our culture, not just at this time of year, but year round, and be a little more cautious on that. And it's not sucking the fun out of anything. It's adding more fun in and longer. There's a lot of really fun, wonderful gifts out there, services, all that kind of stuff, which can make an impact on someone else's life. So that would be the plug that I would make is to maybe adjust your thinking from consumer type goods, which if someone needs something, they need something, absolutely get it for them. But when you're talking about gifting a want, maybe shift your thinking on that.
It's great. And then, but if somebody wanted to gift from, say, the flower pot, how might they find you?
Absolutely. So I do have my website, and that is flowerpotholistic.com. And yes, there are plenty of products on there. I will be loading gift sets and that kind of stuff for holiday gifting and also for services. You can definitely get a hold of me through that website, or you can just do Cara at flowerpotholistic.com. And I absolutely do consults. I do herbal consults, functional nutrition. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I know where I am going to be going for Christmas this year. I definitely need to get some teas, just for myself, but for my family as well. But yeah, aside from that, this has been such a great conversation. I could probably talk to you for another hour or two, even through all of our tech issues, mostly on my end. I'm pretty sure it's my fault here. But yeah, just hearing your story, like a genuine story of true grit and resiliency and just determination and also love and compassion that you have. It's again, the pleasure's been mine having you on here. And thank you so much.
You bet. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you. All right. Till next time, guys. Thank you so much for being here on True Grit. I truly appreciate it. If this episode sparked something in you, share it, subscribe, or leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. For more ways to connect, head to true-grit.fitness or come say hi on Instagram at true.grit_bold.wellness. I'll see you next time with more stories, lessons, and a little bit of grit.